What if the reason someone stopped valuing you is not because you became less valuable, but because you became too available? You kept chasing, you kept explaining, you kept giving more when they gave less. And without realizing it, you taught them that they could lose your attention without losing you. But there is one simple shift that changes the entire dynamic. There is a moment when you realize someone no longer looks at you the way they once did. Their messages change. Their effort decreases. They stop asking about your life. They become comfortable giving you the bare minimum because they know you will continue giving them everything. And what do most people do? They chase. They send another message. They become more available. They try harder. They ask, "What did I do?" They start searching for the perfect words that will make the other person care again. But there is a dangerous mistake hidden inside this behavior. You are trying to restore someone's interest by giving them even more of yourself. And the more you chase, the less space there is for them to notice your absence. Sometimes the most powerful response is not to demand attention. It is to stop giving yours away so freely. Because before you can change what happens next, you have to understand the first move. Stop chasing their attention. There comes a moment in many relationships when you notice a change that is difficult to explain. The messages become shorter. The enthusiasm disappears. The invitations become less frequent. You begin wondering what happened. You replay conversations. You search for the moment when you supposedly became less interesting, less important, or less valuable. And instead of stepping back, you move closer. You send another message. You ask another question. You offer more attention. You become more available. You try harder to recover something that the other person has already stopped giving freely. This is where you make your first mistake. You assume that more effort will create more appreciation. But attention that has to be chased rarely becomes genuine appreciation. When someone begins withdrawing from you, your instinct may be to pursue them because uncertainty is uncomfortable. The human mind hates unfinished situations. If someone suddenly becomes distant, you want an explanation. If someone stops responding with the same enthusiasm, you want to know why. If someone who once made you feel important begins treating you as optional, your ego wants to restore the old position, so you chase. You explain, you ask, you prove, you give more. And slowly, you turn yourself into a person auditioning for a place in someone else's life. That is the trap. Your value does not increase because you become more desperate to demonstrate it. In fact, desperation often has the opposite effect. When someone realizes that they can give you less attention and still receive more of yours, the balance becomes distorted. They no longer have to invest because you are doing the investing for both of you. This does not mean the other person is necessarily cruel. People change, priorities change, feelings change, circumstances change. Sometimes someone genuinely becomes less interested, and there is nothing morally wrong with that. The mistake is not their change. The mistake is refusing to accept the information their behavior is giving you. Pay attention to patterns. If someone repeatedly makes you feel like an obligation, stop treating their attention like a prize you must win. If they consistently cancel, stop rearranging your life around them. If they only appear when they need something, stop confusing access with affection. If you are always initiating, stop pretending the relationship is equally invested. You do not need to punish them. You need to observe. There is enormous power in observation because it prevents you from reacting emotionally to every change in another person's behavior. Most people do the opposite. Someone pulls away and they immediately pursue. Someone becomes cold and they become warmer. Someone becomes unavailable and they become more available. They compensate for the other person's withdrawal, and by doing so, they hide the truth. If you stop chasing, the relationship reveals itself. Maybe the person notices your absence and reaches out. Maybe they realize they were taking you for granted. Maybe they restore the connection. Or maybe nothing happens. That last possibility is painful, but it is valuable because silence can give you information that chasing would have prevented you from seeing. If you stop carrying the relationship and it completely collapses, perhaps you were carrying more of it than you realized. This is why stepping back should not be viewed as a manipulation tactic. Do not withdraw so someone becomes afraid of losing you. Do not disappear for 3 days because you want them to send a message. Do not manufacture jealousy. Do not post things designed to make them wonder what you are doing. That is still chasing. You are simply chasing indirectly. Real withdrawal is different. You stop investing where investment is not being returned. You return your attention to your own life. You stop monitoring their behavior. You stop checking whether they noticed your silence. You stop counting how many hours it took them to respond. You stop trying to create a reaction. That is when something changes inside you. You no longer need their attention to confirm your importance. And this is the deeper lesson. The person who cannot tolerate being ignored will always be vulnerable to someone who knows how to withhold attention. Attention becomes a weapon when you need it too badly. Someone can make you feel powerful by giving you attention, then make you feel worthless by taking it away. If your emotional state follows that cycle, they have more influence over you than they should. You must learn to separate another person's attention from your own value. Their attention is a behavior. Your value is not. Someone can overlook you without making you insignificant. Someone can reject you without proving that you are unworthy. Someone can stop choosing you without meaning that you have become less valuable. This is difficult because rejection often feels like a verdict. It is not. Sometimes it is simply information about compatibility, timing, priorities, or desire. You do not have to turn someone's decision into a judgment against yourself. You also do not need to convince them that they are making a mistake. Let them choose. People reveal themselves through what they repeatedly prioritize. You should not have to perform constantly to remain important in someone's life. Healthy connection contains reciprocity. Both people initiate. Both people listen. Both people make adjustments. Both people notice when the other is struggling. There can be periods of imbalance because life is not perfectly symmetrical, but chronic imbalance eventually tells you something. And once you recognize that pattern, the mature response is not to increase your effort. It is to stop forcing what is not naturally being returned. There is a strange freedom in allowing people to show you where you stand. You stop arguing with reality. You stop trying to transform indifference into affection. You stop interpreting crumbs as promises. You stop turning every small gesture into evidence that the relationship might return to what it once was. You become interested in what actually exists now, not what existed before. Not what you hope will exist later. Now that is where your power returns, because when you stop chasing attention, you reclaim something far more valuable than the attention itself. You reclaim your attention, and your attention is the currency with which you build your life. Where you place it determines what grows. If you spend it obsessing over someone who barely notices you, your own ambitions receive less of it. Your health receives less. Your work receives less. Your friendships receive less. Your future receives less. You become mentally occupied by someone who may not even realize how much space they occupy in your mind. That is an expensive form of attachment. So stop asking, how can I make them value me again? Ask a different question. Why am I giving so much of myself to someone who is showing me so little? That question moves the center of power back where it belongs, inside your own decisions. Withdraw your energy without announcing it. There is a difference between disappearing to manipulate someone and quietly removing your energy from a relationship that no longer deserves so much of it. The first is a game. The second is self-respect. When someone stops valuing your presence, you do not need to deliver a dramatic speech announcing your departure. You do not need to tell them that they will regret losing you. You do not need to list everything you have done for them. You do not need to make them feel guilty for changing. You simply stop over-investing. This can feel unnatural if you are accustomed to proving your value through effort. You may want them to understand exactly how much you gave. Resist that impulse. People who value you do not need an accounting ledger to recognize your presence, and people who do not value you will rarely become appreciative because you present them with a longer list of sacrifices. Sometimes the most revealing response is quiet. You stop initiating every conversation. You stop solving every problem. You stop being available at every hour. You stop rearranging your priorities whenever they appear. You stop giving emotional labor that was never reciprocated. And most importantly, you stop doing these things while secretly hoping they will notice. Because if you withdraw your energy only to watch whether they react, you have not truly withdrawn it. Your attention is still with them. Real detachment means your behavior changes because your priorities have changed. You are no longer trying to control the outcome. Perhaps they come back, perhaps they do not. Either way, you continue. This is where people often misunderstand the idea of distance. They think distance is about creating scarcity so someone becomes obsessed with you. That is manipulation. The deeper principle is different. Distance creates clarity. When you are constantly available, you can hide the truth of a relationship because your effort compensates for the other person's lack of effort. Once you stop compensating, the natural level of their investment becomes visible. You see who calls, who checks in, who remembers, who makes plans, who notices your absence, who only appears when they need something. You learn more from what happens when you stop pushing than from what happens while you are constantly pushing. This is why you should not be afraid of stepping back. If the connection is genuine, space will not destroy it. If the connection depends entirely on your pursuit, space will reveal that either result is useful. The goal is not to make someone chase you. The goal is to discover whether they would choose you without being chased. That distinction changes everything because being pursued is not the same as being valued. Someone may chase you because they dislike losing access, attention, convenience, or control. What matters is whether they respect you, whether they invest, whether they listen, whether they make room for you, whether their actions match their words. Do not confuse someone returning with someone changing. A person can return because they miss the attention you provided. That does not automatically mean they have developed the capacity to value you differently. Watch behavior, not promises, not emotional speeches, not sudden affection after you become distant. Behavior over time. That is the evidence. And while you are observing, rebuild the parts of your life that became neglected while you were focused on someone else. Return to your work. Return to your discipline. Return to your friendships. Return to your interests. Return to the goals that existed before their attention became the center of your emotional world. The point is not to become cold. The point is to become complete enough that another person's attention is an addition to your life rather than the foundation of it. When you reach that position, your relationships become cleaner. You can appreciate someone's presence without fearing their absence. You can love without clinging. You can give without keeping score. You can walk away without needing revenge. and you can allow someone to leave without immediately assuming that you must chase them back. That is the real trick. Not making them miss you, not making them jealous, not making them regret losing you. The real trick is becoming so grounded in your own life that their lack of appreciation no longer determines how you see yourself. And from that position, you can finally see the relationship clearly, without desperation, without performance, and without needing their attention to tell you what you are worth. Let their absence reveal their true priorities. Sometimes the clearest way to understand someone's priorities is to stop filling the space they leave behind. When you stop initiating every conversation, solving every problem, or constantly making yourself available, their natural level of investment becomes visible. Do not create distance as a punishment or tactic. Simply stop compensating for someone else's lack of effort. If they value the connection, they will notice and respond. If they do not, their silence gives you information. Either way, you gain clarity because you are no longer forcing a relationship to look more balanced than it actually is. Never beg someone to recognize your value. The moment you have to convince someone that you deserve appreciation, you have already surrendered too much power. You can communicate your feelings, explain what you need, and address genuine misunderstandings, but you cannot force recognition. Some people will overlook your loyalty, your effort, and your presence, regardless of how much you give. Do not turn yourself into a salesman trying to convince them to appreciate what they once received freely. Let your actions speak, and if they continue choosing indifference, redirect your energy toward people and purposes that genuinely value what you bring. Become less available, not more desperate. When someone begins treating your presence as optional, your instinct may be to become even more available. Resist it. Do not rearrange your life to regain someone's attention. Stay focused on your responsibilities, goals, friendships, and peace. Being less available is not about playing games or manufacturing scarcity. It means you stop making yourself endlessly accessible to someone who is no longer investing equally. Let your time regain its value. When your life no longer revolves around waiting for someone's message, reaction, or approval, you begin responding from self-respect rather than desperation. Stop rewarding indifference with more effort. If someone repeatedly gives you little while receiving everything from you, increasing your effort only teaches them that indifference has no cost. Stop trying to compensate for their lack of investment. Match reality instead of fighting it. Give where there is reciprocity, communicate where communication is mutual, and step back when your efforts consistently disappear into silence. This is not punishment, it is balance. You cannot build a healthy connection by doing the emotional work of two people. Sometimes the most powerful change is simply refusing to keep pouring energy into a place where nothing is growing. Let silence expose what words cannot. When words become repetitive, silence can reveal what explanations never will. You do not always need another conversation, another question, or another attempt to make someone understand your value. Step back and observe. Who reaches out when you stop initiating? Who notices when you are no longer available? Who makes an effort without being reminded? Silence removes the noise created by constant pursuit and allows behavior to become visible. Do not use silence as punishment or manipulation. Use it as space to observe reality without interfering with it. Allowing actions to answer the questions you keep asking. Rebuild your life where their attention used to be. When someone stops valuing you, the empty space they leave can become an obsession if you allow it. Instead of staring at that emptiness, fill it with something that belongs to you. Return to your goals, strengthen your body, improve your skills, reconnect with people who matter, and create routines that make your life meaningful without their attention. The objective is not to make them regret losing you. It is to become so engaged with your own direction that their absence no longer feels like the center of your existence, and your life begins moving forward again without waiting for them. Make them feel your absence without playing games. Your absence becomes meaningful when it comes naturally from a life that no longer revolves around someone else's attention. Do not disappear to provoke jealousy. Post things to create curiosity or manufacture a reaction. Simply stop overextending yourself. Focus on your priorities, become less dependent on their responses, and allow the relationship to exist without your constant effort. If they notice, let them notice. If they reach out, judge their actions rather than the excitement of their return. The goal is not to make someone chase you. It is to stop chasing them. Become so whole that their validation becomes irrelevant. The highest form of detachment is not pretending you do not care. It is building a life in which another person's approval is no longer required for you to feel complete. You can appreciate their attention without needing it. You can value their presence without fearing their absence. When your identity is built around your own values, work, relationships, and purpose, rejection loses much of its power. You no longer ask, how do I make them value me? You begin asking, is this relationship worthy of the person I am becoming? The deeper lesson is not about making someone miss you. It is not about manipulating them into coming back. It is not about creating jealousy, disappearing strategically, or trying to make someone regret losing you. Those are still forms of attachment. The real transformation happens when you stop needing their reaction altogether. You learn to recognize the difference between genuine connection and one-sided pursuit. You learn that stepping back can reveal priorities that constant effort hides. You learned that your value does not need to be negotiated. You learn to stop rewarding indifference with even more effort. You learn that silence can reveal what endless conversations cannot. And most importantly, you learn to redirect the energy you once spent chasing someone into building yourself, your work, your discipline, your relationships, your health, your purpose, your future. Because the goal was never to make someone look back at you. The goal was to become so focused on where you're going that you no longer need them to look back. Let them choose, let them stay, let them leave, let them misunderstand. You do not have to control another person's feelings to control your own direction. And eventually, you reach a point where their attention becomes a pleasant addition rather than an emotional necessity. That is when rejection loses its power. That is when absence stops feeling like punishment. That is when you stop asking how to make someone value you and start asking whether they deserve access to the person you are becoming. If this video gave you a different perspective on being undervalued, subscribe to the channel and comment. I will never chase value again. Not to make anyone come back, not to prove anything, but to remind yourself that your life keeps moving forward, whether they notice or not. Because you can appreciate their presence without needing it. You can value their attention without depending on it. And you can become so whole that their validation becomes irrelevant.